Peace be upon you. So Surah 2 verse 30, it reads, "Recall that your Lord said to the angels, I am placing a Khalifa, a ruler, Vicegerent, on earth. They said, will you place therein one who will spread evil therein and shed blood, while we sing your praises, glorify you, and uphold your absolute authority? He said, I know what you do not know." One of the discussions is, what is this Khalifa? Who is this person? The common belief is that this is Adam. But I'm going to show that this is actually not the case, that this Khalifa is a representation of Satan. And it becomes clear when you understand what is the meaning of Khalifa. So this word occurs one other place in the Quran, and it's in Surah 38 verse 26. It says, "O David, we have made you a Khalifa on earth, therefore you shall judge among the people equitably, and do not follow your personal opinion, lest it diverts you from the way of God. Surely those who stray off the way of God incur severe retribution for forgetting the day of reckoning." So in this verse, it's specifying that David is a Khalifa. But this is different than just saying a king, because we know that David was a king. This is actually specified in Surah 2 verse 251. It says, "They have defeated them by God's leave, and David killed Goliath. God gave him kingship and wisdom." And the word for kingship is mulaka. And the word for Khalifa is usually translated as a ruler or a vicegerent, but the word has multiple meanings. And I think there's real significance to why God is using this word, and then what it has to do to signify that this is actually not Adam, and it's Satan in reference to 2 verse 30. So the word Khalifa comes from the root kha lam fa, and it has a multitude of meanings. But in the Quran, you'll see that it's limited to a handful of meanings. The first one is to break or violate an agreement. The second meaning you'll see that this root uses is to dispute. The third meaning is to alternate, as in the alternation of the night and the day. The other meaning is to stay behind, as in the sedentary who stayed behind, to come after or to succeed. It also means to have various, as in various fruits. And the last one, this is the one that's typically associated with Surah 2 verse 30 and 38 verse 26, is in the sense of a successor, an inheritor, or a ruler. But I want to show that this word actually in this context has a different meaning than just that. It's more than that. And to understand this, let's look at Surah 2 verse 30. And let's break down some of the signals and the signs that God has left us to make sense of this. So it starts out, it says, "Recall that your Lord said to the angels, I am placing a Khalifa on earth. They said, will you place therein one who will spread evil therein and shed blood, while we sing your praises, glorify you, and uphold your absolute authority? He said, I know what you do not know." So what can we extrapolate from this verse? One is that it's clearly showing that God has already created earth, because it's signified to them. It says, I am placing a Khalifa on earth. So earth has already been created. Secondly, we see that the initial response from the angels is to assume that this Khalifa is one who's going to spread evil and shed blood. So there was some indication in the phrasing where God said, I am placing a Khalifa on earth, that automatically made them assume or know that this Khalifa would be evil. The third one is that the angels are showing their absolute devotion to God when they clarify that despite this Khalifa being placed on earth, that they will still sing God's praises and glorify God and uphold His absolute authority. And the fourth data point that we have from just this verse alone is that God is letting the angels know, and us as the readers of the Quran know, that He knows what we do not. So this is already setting the stage to what's coming. In the following verse, we see the introduction of Adam. And naturally, the expectation is that Adam must be this Khalifa. But as we'll see as the story progresses, this is actually not the case. This is what the angels assume. This is what the reader assumes at this point. And so in Surah 2 verse 31, it reads, "He taught Adam all the names and presented them to the angels, saying, give me the names of these if you're right. They said, be you glorified. We have no knowledge except that which you have taught us. You are the omniscient, most wise." He said, "O Adam, tell them their names." When he told them their names, he said, "Did I not tell you that I know the secrets of the heavens and the earth, and I know what you declare and what you conceal?" Now, there's a lot packed into these verses, but what I want to focus on is this last statement, that God is clarifying to the angels, and obviously us as readers of this Quran, that I know what you declare and what you conceal. Now, this becomes that much more apparent in the following verse. In Surah 2 verse 34, it says, "When we said to the angels, fall prostrate before Adam, They fell prostrate except Satan. He refused, was too arrogant, and a disbeliever. So this is the big reveal, that this discussion that God was having with the angels, presenting Adam, teaching Adam the names, showing them that he knew what they did not know, showing them that he knew what they were concealing in themselves, was all to expose Satan as one of these angels, that he actually had these supercilious thoughts that he was going to refuse God's commandment. And this was the big twist in the story, that Satan, up until this moment, was an angel, and the second that he defied God, he challenged God's absolute authority, he became a jinn. And this is clarified in Surah 18 verse 50. It says, we said to the angels, fall prostrate before Adam. They fell prostrate except Satan. He became a jinn, for he disobeyed the order of his Lord. That once Satan, Iblis, made this decision to defy God's direct commandment by disobeying his Lord, he became a jinn. And it continues in the same verse in Surah 18 verse 50. It says, will you choose him, Satan, and his descendants as lords, Reb, instead of me? Even though they are your enemies, what a miserable substitute. This is the smoking gun in all this. So here God is specifying that the choice is either you choose God or you choose Satan. And that's the alternative choice. One of the meanings of Khalifa is that of an alternative, an alter option of what? Of God. Because when the angels were told by God that I'm placing a Khalifa on earth, the way they understood that is that God is placing an alternative to who? To himself. That's the reason the angels automatically knew that this person, this individual, this Khalifa, this alternative to God, was going to be one who's going to shed blood and spread evil. Because that is the alternative to God. If God encompasses everything that's good, that's honorable, that's righteous, then the alternative to that is someone that spreads evil, spreads corruption. That is what God was inferring to the angels, and that's what they associated with. And it became clear to them that this Khalifa was not Adam. Adam was not the alternative to God. Adam was merely a creation to expose the true Khalifa that God was insinuating, which was Satan. That Satan was going to be this Khalifa here on earth. Satan is the alternative option to those who choose to defy God. That you have one of two choices. Either you follow God or you follow the path of Satan. Those are the two options, and God clarifies this multiple times in the Quran. For instance, in Surah 7, starting from verse 11, it reads, we created you, then shaped you. Then we said to the angels, fall prostrate before Adam. They fell prostrate except Iblis, Satan. He was not with the prostrators. He, God said, what prevented you from prostrating when I ordered you? He said, I am better than he. You created me from fire and created him from mud. He said, therefore, you must go down, for you are not to be arrogant here. Get out, you are debased. He said, grant me a respite until the day of resurrection. He said, you are granted a respite. He said, since you have willed that I go astray, I will skulk for them on your straight path. I will come to them from before them and from behind them and from the right and from their left, and you will find that most of them are unappreciative. He said, get out therefrom, despised and defeated. Those among them who follow you, I will fill hell with you all. So here, Satan is basically declaring himself as the opponent of God, the one who's going to not only defy God, but spend his entire existence trying to lead the human being astray because he believed that God honored Adam instead of Satan, and his ego was harmed and affected by this. And we see that what ends up happening is that when Satan dupes Adam and Eve in paradise, God causes all of them to come down here on earth. Now Adam is long gone. His body has gone back to dust. But Satan still resides here on his mission. This is the reason that God said that he is placing a Khalifa here on earth. And the angels already knew that that was insinuating that it was someone who is evil, who is the alternative to God. And this is also specified in Surah 36, verse 60. It says, did I not covenant with you, O children of Adam, that you shall not worship the devil, that he is your most ardent enemy, and that you shall worship me alone? This is the right path. He has misled multitudes of you. Did you not possess any understanding? The reality is we have one of two choices in this world. Either we follow God or we follow Satan. That is the alternative option. The second we set up another source beside God, we choose to follow another commandment beside God, we're making the same mistake that Satan did in the high society. And this is what Satan is pushing each of his constituents to do, to defy God, to show just how unappreciative the human being is. This is his function. So when God told the angels, I am placing a Khalifa on earth, this was insinuating that this individual was going to be the alternative option to God. That is the reason they automatically knew that this person was going to spread evil and shed blood. And the angels were committing that despite this, they're going to sing God's praises. Now, the irony of all this was that Satan was amongst those angels when they made that proclamation. And God was to expose what was hidden inside his chest, to bring it out, because he might have not have been aware of it. And by creating Adam and telling the angels to fall prostrate before Adam, this was the trigger that brought out Satan's true convictions, that exposed him as this Khalifa that God was placing on earth and giving him free reign to purify the humans. Because God tells us that those who choose to follow Satan, that's the only individuals that Satan is going to have power over. But he will have no power against those who are devoted absolutely to God alone. This is why we read in Surah 16 verse 98 through 100 the following. It says, when you read the Quran, you shall seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. He has no power over those who believe and trust in their Lord. His power is limited to those who choose him as their master, those who choose him as their God. Now, when we take this understanding that a Khalifa is only used twice in the Quran, is in the context of not just a successor, a vicegerent, a ruler, but one who is an alternative ruler in a dominion, it makes sense, because if we look at the example of Surah 38 verse 26, where it says, O David, we have made you a Khalifa on earth, we realize that this statement comes right after David made a judgment regarding the dispute that two brothers had in the context of their sheep. And that David made a slight error where he believed he might have employed his personal opinion when making that judgment. That God is clarifying for David that in essence, I've made you an alternative on earth from what? It says, you shall judge among the people equitably and do not follow your personal opinions, lest it diverts you from the way of God. Surely those who stray off the way of God incur severe retribution for forgetting the day of reckoning. That God is commanding David to follow the path of God. So just like Satan is the alternative to God, David is the alternative to evil. In this context, that God is telling him to stay on the right path, to don't follow those who use their personal opinion when they make judgments. So let's contrast these two verses. In one case, the Khalifa mentioned in Surah 2 verse 30 is that of Satan, who chose to follow his own opinion and defy God. God is telling the other Khalifa, that of David in Surah 38 verse 26, not to be those who follow their own opinions. And this is the contrast between the two. Now here's another interesting tidbit to show that the Khalifa mentioned in Surah 2 verse 30 is evil, while the Khalifa mentioned in 38 verse 26 in the reference to David is righteous. If we look at the Arabic between these two expressions, you would think that they would be identical. But what we find is that in Surah 2 verse 30, it says fi, which is in, al-ardi, which is the earth, Khalifa, which, as we discussed, is Khalifa. So here it's saying fi al-ardi Khalifa, with Khalifa being to the left side of the word earth. But then when we read 38:26, what we find is Khalifa fi al-ardi, which is showing that Khalifa, again, in the text, is on the right side of planet Earth. So this is insinuating to us that one Khalifa is that of the left, which is signified as evil, while the other Khalifa is that on the right, which is signified as good and righteous. These are the two options we have to choose from. And we see from Surah 7, verse 172 through 175, that this is what God commanded us to do as the children of Adam. It says, recall that your Lord summoned all the descendants of Adam. So that's you, that's me, that's every single human being that ever lived and will live on this planet. And it continues, and had them bear witness for themselves, am I not your Lord? They all said, yes, we bear witness. Thus you cannot say on the day of resurrection, we were not aware of this, nor can you say it was our parents who practiced idolatry and we simply followed in their footsteps. Will you punish us because of what others have innovated? We thus explain the revelations to enable the people to redeem themselves. Recite for them the news of one who has given our proofs but chose to disregard them. Consequently, the devil pursued him until he became a strayer. You see, again, this is the two choices we have. Either we follow God, we worship God alone, or we get pursued by the devil and we end up becoming one of his constituents. This is the alternative that God was telling the angels that he's placing here on earth. And that is the reason the angels automatically knew that this individual was going to shed blood and spread evil by that statement alone, and they doubled down on their commitment to the worship of God alone. So now we know that in Surah 2 verse 30, where it says, recall that your Lord said to the angels, I am placing a Khalifa on earth, that this Khalifa is in reference to Satan. And the choice we have is to either follow God with a capital G or this other God, Satan, with a lowercase g. Because this is the foundation of the statement of La ilaha illallah, that there is no other God with a small g next to Allah, God with a capital G. So if you choose Satan as the alternative, then what is happening is that you're turning Satan into a God with a lowercase g, as in illah, as opposed to Allah. God willing, we're going to end there. If you guys got comments or questions, please hit us up at QuranTalk@gmail.com. If you guys want to follow along the word-for-word literal translation of the Quran, please check out the Quran Study app on the iOS App Store. And if you don't have an iOS device, you can go on to QuranStudyApp.com website and there see a word-for-word literal translation of the Quran along with an awesome translation of the complete verse. And if you like the podcast, please leave us a review, tell other people about it. Until next time, peace and God bless.